Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern, only on Toxic Radio and wherever you find podcasts. Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern, only on Toxic Radio and wherever you find podcasts.
What's up, everybody? We are finally live. Happy Wednesday. Happy Groundhog Day. Happy Hump Day. Got a lot of stuff going on today. To my left, I got Mr. Catrell Simpson coming to us from soon-to-be snowy Columbus, or as Jim Harbaugh likes to say, that godforsaken place. My fellow college expert. How are you, bud?
Hey, I can't complain, man. I'm just glad that I got to be able to make it.
I'm happy you're here, bud. On to my right, our special guest host this weekend. The very huggable, the very likable, the devilishly handsome Mr. CJ Brancato. What's going on, buddy?
I'm just happy to be here. Excited.
Yeah, so you don't get fined.
I'm just here so I don't get fined. That's right.
All right, so we got a lot to go through. There's been a lot of crazy stuff that's happened in sports the last couple of days. We're gonna go over our quick reactions of the conference championship games. We're going to get into the Tom Brady retirement a little bit. And of course, we are going to dig in pretty heavy on the Brian Flores lawsuit, the bomb that he dropped on the NFL yesterday, and deservedly so. After that, we're going to talk about NBA, Ben Simmons trade. Does he get traded? Trade deadline is next Thursday. Get a little bit MLB. Rob Manfred is doing his best to do some more damage to the sport. We'll talk a little bit, little Hall of Fame as well. We got some NASCAR for Jamie. I promised him we would do NASCAR. And then we're going to get into the Winter Olympics a little bit. Me and Catrell love the Olympics. So we're going to get into that as well. So we're going to start first. We will start with the AFC Championship game. Chiefs against the Bengals. I don't think a lot of people had the Bengals winning that game. I think a lot of people thought the Bengals were going to keep that game close. I thought it was a good game. I can't lie. I'm really impressed with Joe Burrow. Not that I wasn't before, but I'm even more so now. That kid has guts. He has moxie, and that team just loves playing for him and loves rallying around him. I think Zach Taylor needs to start getting some credit for turning that team around. There's a lot of guys that wanted him fired, not even brought back this year. And I think that would have been a colossal mistake looking at the way everything turned out. So, guys, what are your thoughts? What were your first initial reactions after the game was over? How surprised were you? How shocked were you that Cincinnati won, or were you more shocked at how poorly Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs played in the second half?
I would definitely say I was more so surprised. We were texting during the game, and I'm like, the Chiefs went up 21-3. I told you guys in the group, I was like, this game's over. Like, they had everything clicking on all cylinders. I'm thinking that the Chiefs were about to go back to the Super Bowl for the third straight year. And that wasn't the case. They had a big stop. The Bengals had a big stop on right before halftime. Eli Apple made a tackle on Tyreek Hill that took points off the board. You know, if that's an incomplete pass, they put up 3 points on the board, and that changed the whole dynamic of the game. If somehow Tyreek Hill manages to get into the end zone, that also changed the dynamic of the game, because that way, you know, you're going into halftime up 28-3 and you're getting the ball. That's a whole lot different than 28-10. It's a whole lot different than going in 21-10, getting the ball. And they came out flat, you know. Patrick Mahomes throwing an interception, and the Bengals just capitalized on all the energy. And for all of us football fans, we're going to be sad in this offseason because the Bengals went out in overtime. They got to stop, and they got the ball back, and they won the game. There are going to be no overtime rule changes this upcoming offseason because of the Bengals, but that's fine. It was a great football game, and I can't wait to see what they do in the Super Bowl.
Now, that last play before halftime, you mentioned it. It clearly turned out to be a big play in the game. Do you blame Andy Reid more there for letting them actually run the play, or do you blame Patrick Mahomes for not throwing the ball out of play and just you know, living to fight another day and taking the points?
For me, I blame it more on Patrick. I think Andy Reid is a coach that has a lot of trust in his quarterback. Patrick Mahomes, yes, he's only 4 years into the league, but, he's won a Super Bowl. He's won an MVP award. Like he knows better in that situation. And so for Andy Reid, I would have trust in my quarterback to know the situation, know the awareness of what needs to happen here. It's either a touchdown or it's an incomplete pass. So I'll put it more on Patrick because Andy Reid just had trust in his Super Bowl winning MVP quarterback.
Handsome man, what do you think?
I agree. You have to trust Mahomes in that spot. And I feel as though we would be second guessing Andy Reid even more. Had it gone the other way and we never knew the outcome. So if you have Patrick Mahomes, you trust him in that spot. I mean, I didn't have a problem with the play call. It was more the execution.
I thought the only thing was very predictable when they put Tyreek Hill, whenever they put him in that motion and zigzagging back and forth, he almost always gets the football. And then when I saw him just squirt out in the flat like that, I was like, if he throws the ball there and they get tackled, the half's over. And that's exactly what he did. To Catrell's point, I was shocked he didn't throw the ball back to the end zone. I thought when he threw that ball, he had to know that the defense had angles there. If they, like I said, if they tackle him at all, like that's a wrap. So I agree. I put it more on Mahomes. He was kind of like waving Andy off, saying the offense is going to stay on the field. I don't think it was a good play call, but that being said, your all-pro MVP quarterback's got to know he can't throw the ball there. What do you guys think about the Bengals?
Go ahead, CJ.
Okay. Yeah. Like Catrell was saying, I had them counted out at halftime for sure. And then even when they came back and Kansas City wins the coin toss, I think like everybody else, I was ready to watch them march down the field and end it. I just think right now they're a team that is not afraid. They remind me a lot with your attitude of the Eagles of 2017. They've been, underdogs the entire way here. They clearly have a rising star at quarterback, extremely explosive wide receivers. They're fun to watch. But sometimes you're just left scratching your head about what's going on in the field, hence getting out to that big deficit there in the first half. But that offensive line terrifies me. And, for me, not to look too far ahead, but I am really concerned about how that's going to match up in the next round.
I'm glad you brought the Eagles up because that is one of the things that I thought, I had the same thought. I was like, these guys really just play with, kind of like an FU attitude. Keep doubting us, keep doing this. We're just going to keep winning football games. Joe Burrow, again, I mean, we've talked about him, at length on this show and national shows have as well about how great he is, how great he's going to be. It's hard to really say anything other than he's officially arrived in here now. Him and Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, that's just going to be so much fun to watch for the next, 10, 15 years, depending on how long these guys play. Cincinnati, I'll be honest, at halftime, I thought we were on the verge of getting a blowout and they were about to get boat raced. And they came out and they just started playing. They kept plugging. They kept grinding away. Kansas City let them back in that game. I don't know what changed in the play calling in the second half because I didn't see anything from Cincinnati's end to where I felt like they adjusted that much to slow Kansas City down. Mahomes did have the one interception, and he missed a couple crucial third down throws, the one to Kelsey, and I think the other one was to Hill. But it was a good game, man. And it came down, and we've talked about him before too. McPherson, that I think he almost embodies the attitude of that team. Like he is cocky as hell, but he just says we're gonna go out, and we're just gonna win. So I loved it. I would have probably preferred Kansas City versus LA, but this Bengals team excites me. It's going to be fun to watch them. I do have the same concern you do, CJ. But like I said, we'll get into that more next week when we get in the Super Bowl preview. But what impressed you about the Bengals, Catrell?
I mean, the biggest thing for me was that there was never a point where the Bengals just had it rolling. You know, the first time they played the Chiefs, it was the Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase show. This time around, it really wasn't anything like that. You know, Joe was spreading the wealth pretty much evenly all around. T. Higgins had the best game of the three, but, you know, the Bengals lost CJ Uzomah pretty early in that game, and you would think that being your number one tight end and, you know, one of Joe Burrow's safety blankets, that would have been more impactful for them, but it really wasn't. They just kind of went with it and kept it rolling. So, I mean, I gotta say, hats off to them. That, of course, the Bengals O-line is going to be something that we worry about in the future for them. The other thing to me was that the secondary in the first half looked like they just weren't on the same level as the KC receiving core. And of course, because there's not many secondaries that are on their level. But the second half, it was almost like, all right, guys, like, we got to do our part to win this game. And that's exactly what they did. We talk about Eli Apple and a lot of his mistakes and how he's been, you know, running his mouth all over social media. But in that second half, he really put, you know, his money where his mouth was, and he strapped up and got to business. So I got to give all the credit in the world to that Bengals secondary. Is as bad as what their corners are on paper, they stepped up. We know Jesse Bates is legit. You know, Von Bell is a very solid piece, you know, at safety. But those Bengals DBs definitely stepped up in that second half.
The one thing that their offense did in the second half, which I applaud them for, like you said, when the tight end got hurt, what they did, I would say halfway through the third quarter, they moved Tyler Boyd pretty much into the tight end role. They didn't put him down in like a 3-point stance like a tight end, but instead of running him out of the slot like they usually do, they pretty much had him starting to run the tight end routes, and he just started getting catch after catch after catch because he was matched up on linebackers. T. Higgins had single coverage outside because they were doubling Chase all day, and that really made Kansas City kind of come out of what they were doing because they had nobody in the middle of the field to match up with Boyd. So that was a great adjustment. And it's just another example, man. You got to play a full 60 minutes in the NFL. These teams are too good. There's too much parity now. It's hats off to the Bengals, man. I think the Patrick Mahomes, I don't want to say hype train, but, you know, a couple years ago they won their first one and they were talking about a dynasty and this and that. And it's kind of why I made my point I did a couple weeks ago about, you know, naming people Michael Jordan and doing this and doing that. It's too hard to win in the NFL, man. It's too, you know, I think he's an amazing player. I still think he's the best quarterback in the league. But to say somebody's going to win 5, 6, 7 Super Bowls just like that, I know he's still young. He still could, don't get me wrong, because he has all the talent in the world. I just hate putting that pressure on people, and I hate putting labels on people like that. But, you know, to talk about playing a full 60 minutes, I think there's no there's no better example than the NFC Championship game. So we're going to roll into there. Rams, 49ers. I was very vocal as soon as this game ended. I think Kyle Shanahan calls 49ers game, and I think it's pretty clear in my opinion. For a coach to hold the distinction of giving up the 3 biggest leads in the history of the NFC playoff game, NFC Championship game now, and a Super Bowl is very telling to me. And he holds all 3 of them. I think he put his team in a really bad spot. You know, I'd like to hear what you guys think about it before I really get into it. But I think that 4th and 2 call, the punt, I think turned the tide in the entire game in the fourth quarter.
Do you think that's coaching scared, or do you think that's just lack of faith in the quarterback position there?
A lot of people want to put it on Jimmy, and I'll say this. He had confidence in Jimmy that entire game up until that point. Jimmy G, up until that drive, Jimmy G was playing better than Matt Stafford. He had better numbers. He was playing better. My biggest thing is we all admit what Jimmy G is. So as a coach, you have to as long as you can keep your team in front and keep the ball in your team's hands, and you can continue to run the offense that you want to run, which is running, play action, short passes, things like that. You're not putting him in a position where he's got to drop back 3 times to throw the ball 20 yards down the field, because that's where he gets in trouble. You have that opportunity in your hand. You know, you get the first down there, you're at least taking 2 more minutes off the clock. At that point, the Rams know they're not getting the ball back twice. They're not. They have to change everything they're doing because they're probably only getting the ball one more time. So for me, it's coaching scared. I mean, you saw it in the Super Bowl with Matt Ryan, and you've seen it in other playoff games. There's too much history there with Kyle Shanahan coaching very timid in fourth quarters of games where he leads, and he doesn't coach well. So no, again, I'm not going to say Jimmy G is the end all be all. He's a very middle of the road quarterback. I felt like he did enough to win that game, and he had that team in the position to win, which is all you can ask out of him at that point. He went into LA Stadium, had them 6 minutes from victory, was pulling the game plan off flawlessly. I think Kyle Shanahan put him in a really shitty spot. That's just my opinion.
I totally feel that. And for me, I just felt that was such a big turning point in the energy of that game. You could see some body language stuff coming off the field where San Fran may have expected to be left on. And, the Rams totally taking that energy, and because you can feed off that. Absolutely. Like someone's lack of confidence in that situation. And as you said, it changed the dynamic at the time and how many possessions were possible. So, I saw that punt and I was like, ooh. I mean, I liked some of their matchups they had during that game, and I thought it was a good opportunity there to maybe expose one. You need 2 yards, so I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely.
That's my kind of thing. Like, I mean, you guys both played football in high school. I mean, I kind of did, but not really. But your coaches always have plays specifically set up for that, for 2-point conversions or a big 4th down play that you always have plays, 1 or 2 plays that you feel super confident in running that can get you first downs. And all you ever hear about Kyle Shanahan is how he's an offensive genius. And you punt from the 48 on 4th and 2. Like, that's bad to me, man. It's bad, and I agree. I mean, you could see the 49ers offense come off the field kind of deflated. Like, they knew he had no faith in them, and he was putting the game in the defense's hand, which I think is just crazy. I always want to make other teams make plays, and at that point, if the Rams stop me, then so be it. They made the play, but I'm putting that pressure on them to do it.
My whole thing with that game though was that while I'm not gonna say that Kyle Shanahan doesn't deserve the blame here, I definitely think that he has the rap of coaching scared, and that he is one of those coaches that just folds when it matters most. But I will say that we did see in that game that the Rams had it, and granted, it's the other team, but the Rams had it on the 4th and 1. They ran a sneak with Matt Stafford. It didn't work. And, the 49ers got the ball in a very advantage, field position. So I think that's probably part of it. The other thing that I kind of feel Kyle Shanahan on is that Rams offense really didn't have it going at all day. Why would I give them the opportunity with a short field to, finally get the pieces rolling? Obviously, it didn't work out in his favor, but I kind of somewhat agreed with him on that call, just because if you get the Rams, down on, somewhere inside the 20-yard line, they got to drive the entire length of the field, and they really hadn't done that successfully all game. Their second drive of the game, they got points, but outside of that, like, they had been pretty stagnant. So I would have trust in my defense to go out there, get some stops against a team that they were clearly just beating on all fronts. So I kind of feel him on that aspect, but as a whole, though, he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt just because of what his history is.
Yeah, you go ahead, CJ.
I can totally see your point on that, Catrell. Absolutely. For me, it's an opportunity there, 4th and 2. It's not 4th and 5. It's not 4th and long, and I'm going for a kill shot. Because at that point, I take more time off the clock there. I score again, and it could totally change the dynamic of that game. I feel as though going for it there is showing confidence to my defense as well, that, hey, they get the ball here, great. We're going to go out and shut them down again. So while I can see your point, for me, I just think the overall reward there is so much more lean to going for it. That's like one of those things they always point towards in post-game interviews. The analytics says this. Well, I can't imagine how the analytics didn't say to go there.
That's exactly my train of thought. My train of thought is if you're that confident in your defense, then that should lean you even more towards the option of going. Like, hey, if we don't get it, cool. I'm putting my defense on the field. Worst case scenario, maybe they sneak a field goal out here, and then we're still getting the ball back with the game in our hands. And to CJ's other point, that's exactly how I look at it. I mean, they were absolutely the better football team for 3.5 quarters of that game. They were absolutely the better team. You have your foot on the neck of an opponent in their home stadium for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. You can't let up there. You get the 4th and 2 there. Like I said, even if worst case, even if you punt, Matt Stafford's now getting the ball back with roughly maybe like 3 minutes to go. They can't think they have 2 shots at this. They have to get points out of that drive. And if they go down and score, then they go down and score. I mean, if they kick a field goal, worst case, you go to overtime. God forbid San Fran gets another first down and they kick a field goal. Now you're up 20-14. Stafford's getting the ball back with probably under 2 minutes to go, and they have to score now. Not a field goal. They have to score a touchdown to win the game. I just think there was too many advantages for San Fran to go for it there, that if they get it, I mean, it I'm going to say seals it, but the win percentage, the win probability for San Fran would have shot through the roof there. I think you had an absolute chance that with the game in your hands, make the decision you want to make, run the play you want to make, run the play you want to run, and win the game, man. I mean, I'll go back to the old Herm Edwards, man. You play to win the game. I don't play to tie, or I don't play to punt. I just don't think those can be options there. But, I mean, Catrell, you did make a lot of good points. I do see it that way as well. I just, kind of like you said, with his past history in the Super Bowl and everything else, he can't get the benefit of the doubt. It's happened too many times.
100%. And I think part of it, too, is that in reality, that 49ers team, they don't have a true offensive identity. Like, their identity is running the ball, but in reality, their identity is getting the ball to Deebo Samuel. So while, yes, as a coach, you have to have, plays designed for 4th and short and 3rd and short that are just kind of your money plays, in that situation, I don't know exactly what they do, because you would think they have to put the ball in the air with Jimmy G. But then again, my mindset would be, do I trust Jimmy G to go out and make this play, or would I rather punt, give it to my defense? So I think it was a lot that went into it. Clearly, hindsight's always 20/20. In the moment, I'm usually an aggressive person. So I think we need to go out there. We need to go out and make that play. But the way that game was going and knowing what the Niners have on offense, I was, either way it went, I was okay with it. But then after that, I mean, we've seen it happen. I think I saw a stat that said in the last 4 games that Kyle Shanahan's, been either a coach or an offensive coordinator, the games that he's lost, he's been outscored 51-0. So when you put up stats like that, you don't get the benefit of the doubt from me. But that specific game, that specific drive, I kind of understood where he was coming from.
I saw that same stat. I believe it might be 51. I don't know why I want to say it's 53, but yeah, 53-0 in the 4th quarter that's bad. You're not going to win playoff games that way.
Nope.
That's just crazy. So that's all we got for that. Like I said, we're not going to get into the breakdown or the preview or anything, because once Gino is back next week, we will have our Super Bowl extravaganza show next.
Before we move on too much, I want to hear CJ's Super Bowl prediction, since I'm sure he'll be in the comments, but he won't be on, so I want to hear it.
Catrell, putting you on the record.
Guys, so one of the things I wanted to mention was, obviously, like, all respect to Joe Burrow and Cincinnati, but with Kansas City losing, I felt like the champ is going to be the Rams. I think either of those NFC teams we're going to be able to handle Cincinnati. So I'll go with the Rams. I just see Joe Burrow. I mean, it's going to be a long day.
Give me a score prediction.
I'm going to go 31-17 Rams.
Oh, okay.
High scoring Super Bowl. The only thing I feel like, if it was San Fran Cincinnati, we were in store for like a 17-13 game or like a 13-9 game or something. Could have been fun. You were in a block pool or whatever. That would have been interesting.
Without getting too crazy into it, I just think it's crazy that these teams have never been able to have like a home Super Bowl. and we've had it the past 2 years in a row. Like, that's nuts to me.
But how crazy is it that San Fran had like 65% of the attendance on Sunday?
Well, the Rams and the Chargers just don't have good fan turnout. Like, I was looking at a stat from their like home games during the regular season. Almost every game they had, there was more opposing fans than what their home fans were.
My problem with it's going to be is all the Hollywood people are going to show up now. They're all going to dole out the money. They're all going to buy the $30,000 tickets. They'll be all over the place, and they'll be out there in their Rams gear, knowing they haven't been to one goddamn game all year. So that's going to be annoying to see that because all the Hollywood stuff's going to be there. But all right, so 31-17. CJ's on the record, so you're now eligible to get roasted in 2 weeks if it doesn't turn out that way. But we will transition to the man that's won a lot of Super Bowls, more than anybody else. Guy that gave Kyle Shanahan one of those awful comebacks. So Mr. 28-3. We will go with Mr. Tom Brady's retirement. Made it official yesterday. Shefty and a couple other guys broke it Saturday. Took away all his shine for it. Wouldn't let him do it himself, but is what it is. But 22 years, man. 7-time Super Bowl, 5-time Super Bowl MVP, 3-time NFL MVP, 15-time Pro Bowl, 6-time All-Pro, NFL leading touchdown pass leader, passing yard leader, most career wins, most career playoff wins as well. The man's done everything in the game you could possibly do. What are your now that he's finally gone and he's finally official? What do you guys think?
I actually have a pretty crazy Tom Brady stat. Excuse me, that I came across today. So Tom Brady has more touchdowns in his career than 4 NFL franchises in the entire existence of their team. That's insane.
It's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah,
I
it's
saw
not
that,
like,
and I also
go ahead. And it's not like it's just Houston who came out in 2002. The Panthers, Ravens, and Jacksonville all 95, 96, and like he has over almost 100 more touchdown passes than each of those teams. I thought that was crazy. I couldn't believe it.
I think that, and then I saw another one today where he is now the youngest quarterback to win a Super Bowl, and he's now the oldest quarterback to win a Super Bowl as well. Like, I mean, there's literally there's nothing you could say that he ever dropped off. I mean, he literally did it at the beginning. He was a second-year player that got thrust into that spot because Drew Bledsoe got hurt and never gave it back and dominated the NFL for 22 years. And then, he had Buccaneers got ravaged with injuries this year at the end. But, I mean, he won a Super Bowl last year at the age of 43. It's just crazy to me. It's that level of excellence for that long. I'm not going to say we're never going to see it again because, we've talked about a couple of the kids already in the league now with Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Justin Herbert, even Lamar Jackson, those guys. They're more than capable of going on a run like that. It's just, I think it's going to be so hard to do with the salary cap, and people forget how much money Tom Brady gave up in contracts and walked away to keep defenses together or really put the betterment of the team forward to keep them getting back to Super Bowls. And I think that's one of the problems Mahomes is going to run into. His $40 million salary kicks in next year. Tyreek Hill's up the year after that. I mean, he's going to start to lose weapons. It's really hard to just keep getting back there. And I know he's been to 4 in a row, but that just goes to speak to even Tom Brady's, level of dominance even more. Catrell, what do you think? I know he's a Michigan guy, so you probably hate him, but I mean,
yeah, good riddance. Good riddance, Tom. Yeah. Hope you never come back. Don't pull a Brett Favre. I don't want to see you in the Vikings purple or whatever. Stay gone and be gone. No, but all jokes aside, though, like I feel like Tom is obviously the GOAT. Like, there's no arguing that. Do I think someone could eventually get there? I say yes, just because I think the talented quarterbacks are here, and I think if they go to the right situation or they can keep the right foundation around them, kind of like how Tom had there in New England, then it's possible. But they got a long way to go. I mean, even Pat Mahomes, like, He's been to 4 AFC Championship games. I think he's probably the one with the best shot to get as close as possible to Tom. But even still, he's got a long way to go. He's only got 1 Super Bowl right now. And for me, the craziest thing about Tom is that there was a span where, he won his rings or whatever. And then there was a 10-year gap from one Super Bowl win to another Super Bowl win. Like that that kind of thing doesn't happen in the NFL. Like if you have a 10-year gap where you just don't make it with the same quarterback, chances are he either retires or he gets traded because they just realize that he's not the guy to get us over the edge. But that didn't happen with Tom. He stayed in New England. They kept the system together and they just kept, chugging away at it. And the other crazy thing about Tom Brady is that he's never really had one of those premier running backs. Like you could probably argue that his best running back that he had is Leonard Fournette. Like that's the craziest part to me about, Tom Brady's whole career is that he's never really had the running back. He's never really had the consistent weapons, I should say. Gronk was there in New England for a long time, and Aaron Hernandez was there for, short amount of time. And, Randy Moss came and went. Deion Branch was there for a little bit. Wes Welker, those guys. But, he didn't really have always just this steady cast. But he was always just able to make it work with what he had. And so, hats off to him. And he's the GOAT. Nothing else really needs to be said.
That point you just made, which is incredible, and I'm glad you brought it up. You see that sometimes, but kind of to your point, you see it at the end of somebody's career. Like it kind of happened with Denver and Elway. Like he went to 3 really early in his career, and then couldn't get back for 12 years, and then went to 2 bang in a row, won them both, but then he retired. To your point, Brady came back after 10 years, won 3 more. Went somewhere or 2 more, and then went somewhere else and won another one. Like that's just crazy. Like it's unheard of. I mean, I obviously like him more than most in this area simply because of the Michigan ties. Even though I hate the Patriots, but it was hard to. It's just I don't care who you are. It's hard not to respect him and what he's done.
Him going to Tampa Bay definitely. Him going to Tampa Bay definitely made him a more likable person. Bill really had him in this shell that I feel like we didn't really get to know the real Tom Brady. But once he got to Tampa Bay and, Gronk got there and they were releasing all type of hype videos and things like that, you kind of got to see more of the true Tom Brady. And that made him a more likable person to me. While he was in New England, for me, it was I don't like the Cowboys. I don't like the Steelers. That third team that I really don't like is probably the Patriots. And part of it was because they were winning. And part of it was because, to me, they didn't have any likable players. I didn't know too much about Tom Brady other than he was really good at football. So him going to Tampa definitely changed the way I looked at him as a person.
I feel like when he was in New England, Bill Belichick had him he was like Drago from Rocky. He was just this robot. Machine guys, I'm just going to show up on Sundays. I'm going to beat your football team. I'm going to give you 3-word answers, and then I'm going to leave. And then he went to Tampa Bay, and he loosened up, and you see he has this really he's actually funny. He almost has a Phil Mickelson type aspect of sense of humor. He needles guys, he busts balls. Like you said, you saw the hype videos, they were funny, they were well done. And then if you watch any of the ESPN series where it was just him and you heard him talk, he's actually a pretty outgoing, normal guy. So I mean, that was great to bring up. I mean, I think a lot of people have a different aspect, different viewpoint of him now, an opinion of him now than they did when he was up in New England. But I don't know, man. It's gonna be crazy to think there's gonna be no Brady in the NFL next year. What do you got, CJ?
I think a couple of things come to mind. Just even in that last playoff game when they're down with that large deficit, I couldn't walk away from the TV. Couldn't do it. And, obviously all of us that watched the game were rewarded with that ferocious comeback attempt. And there was something different at the end of that game. So many times we had seen Brady, the last man on the field, the last quarterback on the field, besides whoever was holding for his kicker. And be the one that walks off. right? Be the winner of that kind of situation. And to see that go the other way, and his when they obviously panned him on the sideline, just you saw he left so much out there. And he goes out in such a unique way, in my opinion, leading the NFL in passing touchdowns this year, taking what was left of that team through the playoffs and being a handful of plays, a bad slot blitz call away from playing in the NFC Championship game. I believe him that he's done, so don't get me wrong, but this isn't Peyton Manning being drugged to a Super Bowl by a record-setting Broncos defense.
Yeah, it's nothing like that at all.
This is the best player at his position being the best player at his position and then just choosing to walk away, which how often do you see that? And for me, a couple things about Brady. Bill, you mentioned how much money he walked away from. To be honest, I think that is a little easier when your wife makes 3 or 4 times what you do as the number one model on the planet.
I agree, but it's still not common for for most of his career being the best quarterback in the league, being like when you're watching a Manning or other guys sign for 35 and you're like, no, I'm going to make 20. Make sure you keep our middle linebacker. Make sure you keep our cornerback. Like, I think that just adds to his mystique. Like that's not common. That's all I was getting at. Yeah, it does help when Gisele's at home raking in 120 every year for doing Victoria's Secret ads and everything else. So Tom's like, don't ever get it twisted. Tom's never been the breadwinner in that marriage ever, like ever. So good for them.
I think it's important to note one last thing about Tom Brady, and if you take a chance to look it up, how much good he tries to go do in the world and the kind of groups that he works with. Whether you're a fan of him on the field or not, I think what's really cool about Tom is that he's taken time for organizations even outside of his own. And something that really, really hit me was, I think it was either last year or a couple years ago, he was asked at the Super Bowl who his hero was. And he made that quote, that famous about his dad. And that was such a human moment that we don't get from many guys. So that was pretty cool.
The other thing you brought up, which was funny to me, is it's not really funny, but Gene brought some of this up as well, like in our group chat. It did feel different after Sunday. Like you kind of said, usually he's kind of like, especially when they lose, he's kind of like, the first guy off the field. Like, he infamously didn't shake Nick Foles' hands after the Super Bowl. Like he doesn't take loss as well. And I mean, and to be that competitive, I don't stand up for that stuff. I still think he should have walked across the field and shook his hand. But being that level of competitor, I get it. And to your point, CJ, and Gene said the same thing. You could tell he was walking around and soaking it up. Like I think a lot of signs were there that we knew this was coming. They also usually the family doesn't always travel with him to playoff games, and they were at every single game up in a box in case that was his last one. Like a lot of little things like that have come out now since he's announced it. So, people are not making fun of it, but they're pointing out in the statement that he never really said, "I'm retiring." Like little things like leaving the door open. I do agree with you though. I think the family aspect of it. I do think Gisele played a little bit of a part in it. Like, she's like, it's time for you to be a dad. And he even mentioned that in his statement that there's, his love and his energy need to go towards different things now rather than football. So I don't think you see him come back. I think he has too much respect for the game to make a mockery of it or to come back and kind of be like a hired gun, like the Brett Favre type situation. And he doesn't ever want to see himself kind of like, how Peyton Manning was at the end. It was funny when you were saying that your brother literally posted in the group chat. He said, "You never dropped off from start to finish. You never had to be the guy that a team carried to a playoff win, or was the guy that he shouldn't have come back this year. He was never that guy, and it'll never be done again." So that was from Billy, and he's 100% right.
We share a brain, so that helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't kid yourself. I don't think he comes back either. I don't think that. But somebody goes down, somebody big goes down, they're going to call him. 100%.
I think Gronk's going to have a spring break party. They're going to be somewhere in Florida, just on his yacht or whatever. And he's like, Tom, come on, man. Like, I got one more year in me. Like, let's run it back. And you just know how Gronk is. Like,
he's gonna get Tom tuned up and get him on camera committing to coming back, and it's going to go nuts.
Yep.
The Bucks are also in such a cap situation that I don't see how they run that back there. Although it would be fun to see. I enjoyed watching him play this year, knowing that it could have been the last one for sure.
Yeah. Jamie mentioned, do any of us see him going into a coaching role? Honestly, with Tom, I don't. I think he's too high of a player, like, to go into coaching. That's not to say that he couldn't coach, but I just think with a guy like Tom Brady, like as great as he was, that's the kind of guy you see going to like be the director of football operations or even try to own a team in the NFL. Like that's just kind of how Tom Brady is to me, at least.
I don't disagree with you. There was a funny rumor going around on Twitter today. They were like, oh, like, you know, Tom Brady, like he's going to fool everybody again. And they were like, Harbaugh's going to take that Minnesota job and Tom Brady's going to get introduced as the Michigan head coach tomorrow. Obviously, that was never going to happen. But I agree with you, Catrell. I don't think he's going to coach, not anywhere in the near future. I do really believe he wants to hang out with Giselle and be a husband and do the family thing. His kids are also getting to that age where, you know, they're really getting into sports. I think he wants to be around for that. And to your point, Catrell, as well, I don't think he wants to coach right now because I think he would look at it, he'd be like, I'm still better than all these dudes. Like if I'm investing this much time in something, like why isn't my ass playing? Like I don't want to sit here and coach. I'd rather play. I do think. I kind of agree. I don't know if he ever coaches. I really don't. I could see, if anything, I could see him getting to like broadcast booth stuff like Peyton, or, you know, like you said, with the money and the backing he would have, maybe he buys into a football team or something like that. I think that's more likely than him coaching. I 100% agree with you, Catrell.
Yeah, I don't see coaching happening just for the sheer amount of time that it goes into, and not that he's all about money, but again, the financial return is not nearly what it is to be a player. I could see him in an ownership group or high up in operations, maybe. But I mean, you're looking at, they got young kids, 15, 16 years probably before, if he really is going to spend all the time with his family, which is fantastic, and he deserves every minute of it.
I think he's going to be Phillip Rivers. I think he's going to go. I mean, if he coaches at all, I could see him coaching like high school or something like that. And God forbid, awesome. I feel bad. I feel bad for those kids. My Lord, if you're a quarterback on that team, woo, don't throw a bad pass. Good Lord,
he definitely has like the knowledge and the mindset for it. They always would show clips of him and Belichick breaking down film, and you could like get little snippets of that and the things he would suggest for game planning. Like he's such a great student of the game, like so many quarterbacks are. So definitely has a mindset for it and a skill set. I just don't know if he's going to invest that time at the pro level.
I agree.
I got the segue of all segues. Go ahead,
Let's
Bill.
do it. Nah, I mean, we talked about him enough. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if anybody can own a team, it'd be Tom Brady. And I feel like with this whole thing coming out with Brian Flores, the Giants, I'm not saying that for sure that they're going to force them to sell a team or anything like that, but like I think there could be some major implications on this whole Brian Flores lawsuit.
All right, so segue Catrell. We're just going to get into it. We're going to get a little bit serious here because this is a serious issue. We could probably have some fun with it, but it's a serious discussion that needs to be had. So if you're not familiar with it, I don't know how you're not, but Brian Flores pretty much sued the NFL yesterday in a class action lawsuit, saying their hiring practices and just the way they conduct their interviews is just openly racist. The NFL released this BS statement. I'll get into this now. The NFL and our clubs are deeply committed to ensuring equitable employment practices and continue to make progress in providing equitable opportunities throughout all all organizations. Diversity is core to everything we do, and there are a few issues on which our clubs and our internal leadership team need to spend more time. We will defend against these claims against their basis merit. So I'm going to start this off real quick. There's a couple things I want to say. I'm going to let CJ get at it, and then honestly, Catrell, like I just want you to take the mic and really just, from your point of view, which is obviously different than anything I could contribute or even CJ. I just really want your honest opinion on all of this. Just take the mic and do your thing. So I'll start with the statement. The statement's bullshit, and that's about as bluntly as I can put it. This is another example of where the NFL acts like they care when they have to care. This is no different than the lawsuit stuff. This is no different than, the CTE and player safety stuff. When they get pushed into a corner, they act like they care. Until then, they do not care. They care about the bottom line, which is making money, and they make it hand over fist. I don't know if you saw the rating numbers for football this weekend. It was the 2 highest watched non-Super Bowl games ever. They were averaging 49 million viewers per game the entire day. Pandemic plays into that a little bit because people can't go out as much depending on where you are in the country. But that's all the NFL cares about. They care about their TV ratings. They care about their sponsorship deals and their money and the revenue they generate. So the statement for me is BS. I don't buy it. You can't look at the NFL and tell me there's not an issue in that regards where you're saying we promote equitable hiring abilities when you've one black NFL coach, and that's Mike Tomlin. It's not even like he was been hired recently. He's been in the Steelers forever. Secondly, we've talked about it on the show before. I think we talked about it way back, like probably the first couple shows we ever did back in the old studio. The Rooney Rule is trash. It's just trash. I know they revamped it a little bit this year, and it's still trash. As long as you're letting these teams continue to monitor how they enforce it, and there's no NFL oversight, it's not going to get any better. That brings me to my next point. I don't know the solution to all this. I don't. I don't have a solid answer or plan. I've kind of thought about it all day. But here's what I can tell you. We can't keep going the way we're going now. It's not working. This is like a stupid gun control argument like that people get in. It equates to the same thing as me. I don't have the definite answer, but it's lunacy for us just to keep going the way we're going. And it's the same way in the NFL. I think the Giants situation, for instance, I think Brian Dable is a very qualified head coach candidate. I'll say that. I don't have a problem with him getting the job. Them making an ass out of Brian Flores is the problem. And as decent of a hire as Dable is, I think there's 2 other hires that have already been made this year that are suspect. One is the Denver Broncos, which ironically enough, they were brought up in this lawsuit. I think they made that hire. I think everybody knows they made that hire because they're hoping that Aaron Rodgers decides to opt out of Green Bay. So I don't think any black head coach candidate had a chance of ever getting that job, ever. And they were brought up in the lawsuit that they showed up late, and they were saying John Elway and the other VP guy were hungover. And Brian Flores felt like he was disrespected and never taken seriously the entire time. Denver came out with a statement and said that they took notes vigorously throughout the whole process. They're going to release those. They said that he was a very viable candidate, and he was on their short list of people at the end to hire. I don't know what the truth is. I wasn't in the room. But this is one of those things where there's too much smoke that there's got to be fire somewhere. The Rooney Rule's got to go. The one thing I can tell you is if you really want change and you really believe in this, the NFL, speaking to you guys, there's got to be an outside organization that monitors this. And I know that sounds silly, but again, we're here because NFL teams don't take it seriously. It's been proven time and time again. The old boys club, all the old white money, these generational wealth families that own these teams, they're going to do what they're going to do. And I think it's a fine line because it's difficult. I do believe if you own a franchise, you are entitled to hire the person that you want to hire. But that being said, you can't tell me that all these guys that are being hired, that there's not a better black coach somewhere. Like that's the part that nobody's buying anymore. You know what I mean? I mean, and to that point, you look at the Rooneys who've owned or the Steelers forever. They went from Chuck Knox to Bill Cowher to Mike Tomlin, and I would argue they've been more loyal to Mike Tomlin than they have any of the other coaches. Bill Cowher obviously stepped away; he didn't want to do it anymore, but he was going on the hot seat. Mike Tomlin's never had a losing record. Are you trying to tell me there's not another black coach that's capable of doing that? I mean, it's just a tough sell for everybody, and I really just hope that Brian Flores even mentioned this in his statement, and he mentioned it today, that if he has to be the martyr for this, he's okay with it. And I really just hope that's not the case, because I think that guy's a good coach. We talked about him last year. We loved him. And we talked about it last offseason. We hope he didn't get fired. And I thought it was a joke that he got fired this year. And now you're hearing that stuff that Stephen Ross was offering him $100,000 to lose football games. Like, that's just crazy to me, man. I mean, I know there's other stuff that's come out. Getting back to Brady, which is hysterical. Apparently Ross wanted to make a run at Brady last year, and Flores didn't want him. Flores hates Tua, apparently. So there was a lot of power grab, power struggle stuff going on back and forth there. But, that's what we were told. And obviously behind the scenes, there was so much more going on. So I don't know. Something's got to change. I mean, you got Todd Bowles, you got Brian Leftwich, you got Jim Caldwell, you got Anthony Lynn, you got Hugh Jackson, who came out today and said Cleveland's ownership did similar things to offering him. These guys are better coaches than some of these guys have had coaches that got head coach jobs last year that have got head coach jobs this year already. I would say the Eagles is one of them. I mean, I don't think you could say Nick Sirianni is a better coach than Todd Bowles, or like somebody like that's done it before. I don't know. Did we do what we were supposed to do last year? I don't know. I'm not going to ramble on too much. I'm disgusted with the whole thing. I'm very curious to see how it plays out. I hope Flores gets a job. I mean, apparently Flores is like one of the top two candidates to get the Saints job as well, which I think is a great job for him. I know Catrell, I know you feel it's a great job as well. Gene disagrees a little bit just because of their cap issues, but I think the Saints is a great organization, and I think they have more progressive ownership than Dallas or some of these other teams. I hope he gets a job because I think he's a good coach, and I do think he's a star. But I applaud the guy. It's not to potentially pretty much submarine your career to stand up for what's right. I mean, that speaks to that man's integrity and determination more than anything. I don't know how you could say somebody like that couldn't lead a football team in the NFL. So I'll let CJ go, and then honestly, like I said, to Catrell, like I just want your honest feelings on everything, and just have at it, bud.
So, just really quickly on the Rooney rule. To your point, it's completely toothless. It's a complete scarecrow. There's nothing going on there. It's just words on paper. There's nothing backing it up. They claim they can hit you with draft picks or some kind, but how has it ever happened? I honestly don't know. As far as like coaching candidates and black head coaches in the NFL, I always go back when we talk about this to what happened to some of the great coaches that were in the league at one point or another. Tony Dungy in Tampa Bay, perennial playoff team, and then he's pushed aside and they trade for a coach. Anthony Lynn in San Diego, or at LA now, the Chargers. I mean, I thought he was doing a solid job, had a growing roster, young quarterback. Todd Bowles, you said. Now Todd Bowles, I will never forgive for that corner blitz. I will never forgive him for that. Ever. But
that didn't help.
He is a unbelievable defensive mind, and his teams are. He's a guy that teams bring in, and that unit just rises to the occasion. There's a local guy that I think has gotten the short end of the stick on a lot of this, and that's Deuce Staley. Deuce is shown to be a competent NFL coach, assistant, associate head coach, and there were rumors going around that his meeting was essentially blown off. But I'm just, they're not in the room, right? All of us that are NFL fans, there's this list of guys that when these jobs come available, they all get like an interview here or there, but no one ever talks about them like they're serious candidates. And then we hire some dude that obviously is skilled and talented, but he looks no older than 35, never played. Not that that's required, but some of these guys have careers that they've had and have now grown up from the bottom of an organization up to an associate job, a coordinator job. One of the names we didn't bring up, Leslie Frazier.
That's the guy I was trying to think of, and I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I mean, great coach, but just, I feel as though the deck is stacked that if you go somewhere and you have like a bad season or you get fired from that one job, it's just like a wrap. Look at what they did to Dennis Green. I mean, great NFL head coach for a number of years and then just in the wind, right? Just gone. Speaking of, Coach Flores, to me, what's crazy is that why he's probably not there is because of all this other stuff you're hearing about, how he wouldn't cooperate with essentially purposeful tanking in the NFL, that he was doing too good of a job. His teams were winning games.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. I also, one more thing I thought was hysterical is that this whole thing possibly is blown open by a Bill Belichick text. That's
accidental text, which is hysterical. Like,
right, just old man texting.
Yeah.
Just
like, goddamn my phone. Like, Jesus, yeah.
Brian's Brian. Like, it knows who I want to send it to.
The funniest part
has everybody in his phone by initials, right? It's BD, BF, Tom Brady's TB.
The crazy part about that is, like, we were just talking about Brady. Like, you actually saw a little like personality from Belichick there too, and it's funny on that end because he's literally just being like, the dude's got a heart. Like, he's like, like reaching out, like congratulating, like, yo, like, dude, like, you got a great job, like, congrats. That happens to be the wrong guy. The worst part of that text is, though, you could hear the excitement in Flores' text back, like, oh crap, like, did you hear something that I haven't, like, blah blah blah, and then it kind of all sets in that he's like, oh, I'm texting the wrong goddamn dude. But that whole thing's like tough to read, but it was kind of cool that like Bill was just literally reaching out, to who he thought was Brian Dable, but that he has a heart and was showing some emotion. And Gene, before I let Catrell go here, the Deuce Staley thing absolutely happened here, and I think that's probably going to be brought to light. I don't know if Deuce will throw the Eagles under the bus, but that's kind of what they did. They never really gave him the interview that he wanted, and then they offered him like a promotion, more money to stay on. He was like, no, like, kick rocks, I'm out of here. And that might have factored into it. It might have been like, I didn't get a real interview, and I felt like I was a viable candidate for this job, for this franchise. He's only been here for 20 freaking years. I think you're going to hear some horror stories come out of all this, man. I think a lot of guys are not going to be afraid to now come out and say what they've gone through. And I think there's some teams that are probably battening down the hatches right now because they know what they did. And I think some of this stuff is going to be really cringeworthy, man, like cringeworthy stuff. But Catrell, I really do want to hear what you have to say on this, man. So by all means.
Just going off of like what you just said there, teams, really probably worrying right now. One of the things that we also have to keep in mind is that there's a whole other race related investigation going on with John Gruden and, going through emails and probes and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what they find on that end to either corroborate, what's going on in this lawsuit, or just to get more information about, what are these practices that are going on in the NFL, what's said behind the scenes, things like that. So that's one thing that I'll be interested to see, like what they find, just because they got two separate super big, super important investigations going on right now. But as for Brian Flores, I mean, the whole thing it's truly unbelievable. Like, you have this guy who was in Miami in a horrible situation, absolutely horrible. They got a rookie quarterback, with Tua, where they picked that pick 5, and you think that he's going to be the guy for you. And even before Tua, you have this horrible roster, and the owner is telling you that they want you to tank. They want you to tank so that you can get a higher pick and essentially build that roster up. And if this is true, and Brian Flores said that Stephen Ross got mad at him when they started to go on a winning streak, that's already putting you at a disadvantage. So if you want me to lose, one, that looks bad on my record. So I have to, as I go through my coaching career, I have to win more games in these seasons just to make up for just losing games that I may or may not have had any business losing. So that's first and foremost awful. Then, specifically with Brian Flores, he has back-to-back winning records with this Miami Dolphins team. And I think we all can say that they don't have a franchise quarterback. None of us believe in Tua. He's shown us nothing to think that he can be a franchise quarterback in the NFL. And yet, Brian Flores still has 2 consecutive winning seasons. For the Miami Dolphins, that hasn't been done since 2003. So it's been 20 years since you've had back-to-back winning seasons, and then you fire the coach that's gotten you there. He has so much buy-in from these guys. You had guys like Xavier Howard that requested a trade, but then talked to Brian Flores and said, you know what, I think we can work this out. And other guys like Byron Jones came and went to that Dolphins defense in free agency. Like, Brian Flores was a huge deal for what the Miami Dolphins team is now and what they were trending towards. And as for the whole coaching, like the interviews, all that stuff, it's so tough to see, because beforehand, I was always of the mindset that I didn't think these interviews really mattered. And even before this whole lawsuit came out, I was texting Gene and Bill back and forth, and there were a couple jobs that I saw get filled. I'm like, these interviews mean absolutely nothing. Like, I feel like there are some interviews that do mean something for certain jobs, but a lot of these interviews are really just for the semantics of it all. Like, you saw in the conversation with Brian Flores and Bill Belichick that Brian Flores hadn't even interviewed yet for that job, and Bill Belichick's already in the know that, hey, Dable's getting hired here. And that, to me, that's a huge slap in the face, And if you want to say you want to hire the most qualified coach, I'm 100% on board with that. I'm not saying that every, black head coach that's been there is qualified and we need to just have so many black coaches in the NFL. I'm not saying that at all. But my issue is that there are so many talented black head coaches, not even just black head coaches, minority head coaches in general, that just don't get a second chance at things. So you have someone like a Hugh Jackson, who was, granted, he was given a second chance, but let's not forget how his time in Oakland ended up. He was 8-8 for his first season, and then he got the boot. And him being named in this, well, not necessarily named in the lawsuit yet, but him coming out and saying that the Browns were a culprit of telling him, like, hey, if you lose some games, we'll give you some bonus money. And that's absolutely crazy to me too. But looking back on it as a Browns fan, seeing how all of that time period went kind of makes sense. Every single press conference, it would always be, I mean, let's just go back, check the tape, see what happened, and, go from there. And then even after Baker Mayfield got drafted, it was always we're gonna wait on Baker. We got Tyrod Taylor here now. We're just gonna wait on Baker. And everyone knew that Baker was the quarterback to give us the best opportunity to win. So hearing that, it doesn't really surprise me. But this whole thing definitely needs to change. And the whole compensatory picks with the Rooney Rule now, I kind of understand a little bit more, gives you more incentive. So I know in the front office wise, Cleveland just lost their like vice president of their football operations to the Minnesota GM job, and we got a third round pick back from it. So there's more incentivizing that way. But when it comes to these head coaches and the Rooney Rule, it's really just outdated at this point. A lot of these interviews are really for show. And we saw that a few years ago. Marvin Lewis was a guy who was pretty much brought in to every team that needed the token minority coach for the Rooney Rule. And there were sometimes you would even hear names that you're like, there's no way they're going to hire this guy as their head coach. So the Rooney Rule definitely needs some adjusting, and it's honestly sad to see, especially coming from me. Eventually, I want to work my way up into the NFL front office world. So just to see how tough it already is, it's just sad to see, and it's not a good look for the NFL, but I don't know how you change it. These owners are going to, they're stuck in their ways. So hopefully this lawsuit is a big push for change, and Brian Flores can really show, what's going on in the NFL, and he can be the reason why things start to change.
I have a feeling is that as rocks are unturned here, are turned over, and we're exposed to different things, that you could see, if not one, multiple Donald Sterling type sell-offs of franchises, depending upon how.
I say the same thing.
Yeah,
somebody's going to lose their football team. I think there's going to have to be, for lack of a better term, somebody's head's going to have to be had for this. I don't know if it's going to be the Giants. I don't know if it's going to be the Dolphins. They would obviously be the leading candidates right now. The Giants thing is really is not a good look because of the way the text came out. They're saying that it went down to the very end between Dable and Flores. I think you're gonna have a really hard time proving that when Belichick heard 3 days before he even interviewed that Dable was getting a job. The Miami thing, I think, is maybe even more so problematic. And again, I think the Giants might squeak out of this just because I think Dable was a very qualified and sought after coaching candidate. I think if New York would have hired Hackett or that other guy, the weird last name, I can't even Aberfuse or whatever. I think if they would have hired him, I think they'd be in even more trouble. And to Catrell, to your other point, the one thing that I find very interesting is with the Raiders situation, Mark Davis from the get-go has said release all those emails. Like you're vilifying my franchise and my head coach right now, and deservedly so. He said horrific things, don't get me wrong. But he's like, let's release all the other 650,000 emails that are in there because all these other teams are getting a free pass right now. John Gruden is taking the fall for them. Again, I think a lot of dirty secrets are going to come out of this lawsuit. I don't think the NFL is going to want this to go to court. I don't believe that for a second. They can posture all they want. Discovery is the worst thing in the world for the NFL with this lawsuit. They're going to want to settle it. I don't see. Part of me wants us to go to court and go through the process, and let's really see who Jerry Jones is as a person. Let's see who some of these guys are, because I think we all have suspicions, and I think most of us are going to be right with what we suspect. It's a good day for football, and it's a sad day for football at the same time. I hate it. I hate that fact that we have to get to the point where a guy pretty much has to sit at home with his family and decide, am I going to be the martyr guy? Am I the guy that's going to, throw the grenade in here and put my career and my reputation on the line to challenge these guys? And like I said, I think that takes a whole bunch of integrity to go forward with that and challenge them. I mean, let's not, make no bones about it what he's doing here. You're going up against a juggernaut of an organization with, every owner is a billionaire almost. I mean, the Broncos went up for sale officially yesterday, and everybody's approximating that that franchise is worth $4 billion. And don't get me wrong, Denver is probably one of the premier franchises in the league, but if they're worth $4 billion, what the hell are the Cowboys worth? You know what I mean? And that's the uphill battle that these guys are fighting, and it's just crazy to me.
Couple
I
of
don't know
things.
where this. If somebody finish this real thing and say whatever you want, I don't know what the solution is. I keep hearing ownership, and that's tough. I'm not saying it's tough that I don't think they wouldn't accept black ownership or a black ownership group, or have it be a group led by somebody like Jay-Z or something like that. That's just a whole societal conversation, that we're not going to get into because we don't have time. But I mean, the majority of the super, super wealthy people in this country are all white. Who can put a group together that can raise $4 billion? I mean, the ownership is the only thing that I'm a little bit, I don't want to say sketchy. I don't know if they would turn down black ownership if it was a solid group. But coaching, GMs, I think the scary thing is too, I mean, you're starting to see black GMs get hired and they're hiring white coaches. So, I mean, is that directive coming from ownership as well? I mean, and I would say all signs point to yes. Like, hey, we'll give you this job. You can run this franchise, but, you got to hire a white coach that I sign off on. And that's equally as bad. I think there's got to be some kind of, outside panel or arbitrator, some kind of group that monitors these interviews going forward. And they can't be connected to the NFL in any way. They got to be in the room for every minute of these interviews, take notes. And I don't know if that's the solution, but I think it's a really good place to start. NFL's got to be held accountable here. And it's a tricky situation because people forget Roger Goodell works for the owners. I mean, that's in theory, that's his job title. 32 owners in the league are his bosses. Well, 31 because Green Bay is publicly owned. But it's going to get tricky, man. He's in a bad spot, and so is the NFL. I think Gene brought up a good point. I think they're going to make an example out of somebody. I don't think you can wash this away with draft picks and fines. I don't. I think something more severe has to happen. And I would say the most likely target of that right now, I would say, would be Ross and the Dolphins, in my opinion. What were you going to say there, Gene?
CJ.
Thank you. Couple of things. So before the Flores news came out, I thought the craziest thing I was going to see this all season was the coaches in Oakland and Houston being let go. And then obviously Flores, the news comes out with that and it turns your head, and now all this. But a couple of predictions, draft picks being hit for Denver and the Giants. Miami will be a forced sale, and there's going to be a surprise one. And I don't know who it is. I'm not even going to guess, but there will be a surprise one. So I just don't know what this looks like timeline-wise. This could drag out for a long time. Coach Flores is going to get paid. 100%. I agree with Bill. I don't see this happening in court. I see some big checks getting written. And then my last thought on it is, I know there's a difference between players and coaches, but I see a lot and feel a lot of parallels to this situation, and on a level, because I don't want to start this whole debate, but on a level, I totally see parallels to the Colin Kaepernick situation as well.
There's some for sure. I think there's a little bit of difference, as in Colin had chances to come back. I don't think Colin ever thought they were genuine. I think some of them were. And a lot of people are pointing that out today. I heard the same argument, and they were saying, well, Brian Flores is still a candidate for 2 or 3 jobs, and and that was happening before this whole thing came out, and that's true. And again, I think other teams realize that he's a good head coach. This also this muddies the water for any organization that wants to hire him now, though, too. And I think that's unfortunate. because I think you're in theory hiring somebody who at the same time is suing you as they're working for you and you're paying them and he's winning football games for you. That's a very, I'm not saying no ownership team will look at it and do it. I think it's a very complicated situation to navigate yourself through. And to CJ's point, this isn't going to be solved in the next couple months. Like this is going to be a mess. This is going to be a fight. I hope Flores sees it all the way through because, like, again, I'm telling you, the NFL, the last thing they want is to step foot in a courtroom for this. It's not what they want. It's going to be interesting. I think out of all of it, I hope Brian Flores gets paid. More importantly, I hope he gets another job because I do think he's a very talented, young and up and coming coach, and I think any NFL team would be happy to have him. But the most important thing for me is there's no more excuses. Like there has to be change. Like this is going to bring a lot of stuff to the forefront. Kind of like you said, CJ, and I'm sure Catrell believes the same thing. There's going to be some team here that like we never saw coming that's going to get railroaded here. And again, I think behind the scenes, I think some of these teams know what they did, and I think they're probably scared and preparing for the worst right now because you have to know it's going to come out. We have to change. There's got to be change going forward, and I think this is if one thing comes out of it, there's always how whatever it is in history. Whenever you look at it, there's always one monumental moment that happens that alters the course of things and hopefully makes things getting better. And 10 years from now, we're going to talk about it. And it's going to be this lawsuit. So again, I mean, I can't applaud Brian Flores more than I already have. I just hope it's handled properly and we go the right direction out of this.
100%. Feel like we're really up against it here. You probably should save trade deadline for next week, I'm guessing.
Trade deadline we can do next week because it is the night before. We have to do NASCAR, so I need Jamie to hop on here real quick. My dude.
Hey, fellas, how's it going?
What's up, bud?
Not much going on.
This upcoming week, we got the Busch Clash. Usually they do this later in the season. This year, NASCAR is trying something different. If you haven't heard yet, the LA Coliseum, where USC plays their home football games, but also where they held the Olympics back in 1980, they turned it into a short track racetrack, and they're going to fit 30. They're going to fit 30 NASCARs on that inside the stadium. It's going to be wild. So that is this weekend. NASCAR the last couple years has really made an effort to switch up their schedule, the kind of tracks they go to, try new things to gather new fans. They're doing this on the West Coast, which is rare because they really only go out there for Phoenix and Sonoma and California. But most of the other tracks are on the South and the East. So I'll be honest, when I heard this plan, I thought it was crazy. I didn't know how it was going to work, especially size-wise. Now looking at it, I think that's a cool picture. I'm really interested to see how this is all going to play out.
It may not look like much, but that, believe it or not, is only a quarter mile.
Yep.
Quarter mile asphalt track inside, and I didn't think they were going to be able to pull it off.
I didn't either. I've seen some of the construction pictures about bringing it, like when they like fast time everything and speed everything up, and it's really cool.
I've been watching it for months.
Yeah, so they pulled it off. I'll give NASCAR credit. They do some things right sometimes. They get things horribly wrong other times, but
yeah. This is going to be interesting.
It is. It's going to be a cool start to the season for people who watch NASCAR. Like just to give you a point of reference, Bristol and Martinsville are both a half a mile, so this is half the size of those. To tell you how cramped and how much banging is going to be going on. There's going to be some tempers lost. It's going to be exciting to watch. It's going to be exciting to watch.
The question is, who's going to win?
Well, there could be anybody because what's going on is that there are currently 36 drivers entered in the field. They were looking for a total of 40. By the time they're done with qualifying and the heat races, the main event is supposed to be whittled down to 23 cars. for the final race. So at this point, there's been absolutely no practice. Not a single car has touched this asphalt as of yet. First practice will be Saturday afternoon, with qualifying being later on that night. Then the heat races and the main event are all happening Sunday afternoon. So you have a lot of the big names in here like Brad Keselowski, Kyle Larson, Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex Jr., Kurt and Kyle Busch. The big names are in here. Plus, we have a couple rookies in here this year. We're talking Austin Cindric, Harrison Burton, and Todd Gilliland, just to name a couple. So, and I'm looking at the list here. There's a couple other names that I'm kind of surprised here, too. Ty Dillon, Cody Ware, Landon Castle. BJ McLeod is one I never thought I'd see running in the Clash, to be honest with you. So, I mean, looking at the list, I see two drivers. One of the drivers is my guy, Kevin Harvick. He always has been since he took over at RCR when we lost Dale Earnhardt. But I don't see him actually winning this. A top 5, maybe, only based on how he ran last year. He did not run real well. But at the end of it last year, if you were watching, Martin Truex was getting better and better with every race. I think he takes this on Sunday.
Truex is your pick?
Truex is my pick.
All right. I will go first here because I'll rattle through this. The bigger X factor for me, not even so much the track, is they're debuting the new car this week. A lot of guys have been testing it in the next gen. A lot of guys have been testing it. I mean, everybody's had time in them. Nobody's really like aggressively racing them yet. They've been drafting at Daytona, but everybody's been been careful, no bump drafting, so forth and so on. Anytime we go to a new car, I always look at the guys who are actually, really good drivers, maybe don't rely on their equipment as much, can actually just get behind a wheel and drive anything. So I whittle my stuff down to four or five guys. My winner, I'm going to pick, even though I hate him, I'm going to pick Kyle Busch. My top 3 is Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, and Kevin Larson. My long shot, and I don't think he's that much of a long shot, but you get long shot odds on him, is Kyle's brother, Kurt. These guys are all, anytime you talk to NASCAR people, they're all considered the most talented drivers. You could put them in a bad car and they'll get a top 10 out of a bad car. Not everybody on the circuit can do that. This is going to be a driver's race. It's a quarter of a mile. I mean, this is literally like driving around your backyard with 20 other people doing 90 miles an hour. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be fun to watch. People are absolutely going to wreck. I wouldn't be surprised if there's fights. It's going to be a good time, but my official pick will be Kyle Busch.
Not bad.
Definitely don't have a pick for this, so. DJ, I'm not even going to lie to the people. I'm not lying to the people here.
Hey, I'm going to go with Kyle Busch just because I'm looking for a back-to-back champion in this event. And I only know that because I read it. But
CJ did research.
Kyle Busch has actually won it twice.
Oh, well, he's already the back-to-back. I love that. No, I don't know if
they weren't back-to-back, anyway, but he's won it twice.
Very cool. Very cool. Listen, the track looks amazing. That's a super cool event. It's probably going to get someone like me to at least turn on a NASCAR event, which I have no disrespect towards that sport. Just with everything else I'm watching or doing, it doesn't get on my radar. But I've been to a professional NASCAR race twice down in Delaware. Super cool. Just awesome. Not my thing. I'm a terrible driver as well. So really.
That's a fact. That is a fact.
It's true.
I will say NASCAR was very smart to put it on the weekend that the NFL is doing the Pro Bowl. So that was very strategic, and you're probably going to get more people. CJ, I'm right there with you. You're going to get more people that tune in just because I have no interest in the Pro Bowl. I may watch it for 5 to 10 minutes, but outside of that, not a chance.
Yeah, they've never done it on a Super Bowl weekend. They know better. So, Bill, real quick, you brought up you mentioned a dark horse that you have for this. I'm going to throw one at you too. AJ Allmendinger as a dark horse, sure.
I'll tell you, he's a dark horse because he's a terrible driver. So
I've
there's a
seen him
chance
improve over the last year. He's actually gotten a little bit better.
he's a good
A little
restrictor
bit.
plate racer. I'll
A
give him
little
that. But he is. I mean, he's not bad restrictor plates, and obviously he's a very good road course driver.
He won Indy road course.
Yeah, I mean, that's where he grew up at. I mean, he's a road course guy. He could. I mean, listen, who knows? He's not as bad as Ricky Stenhouse, so he's safe there.
Yeah.
Ricky
So-
Stenhouse would just drive everybody in the wall and then be like, "Oh, I won the race." That's what Ricky Stenhouse does. All right. Well, we got like 15 minutes here because we started a little bit late. We're gonna skip basketball. That's not the end of the world. I don't.
I'm
we'll
fine
get
with
into
that.
Ben. we'll get into Ben and that debacle next week because, like I said, we'll be on the night before the trade deadline, so that'll be a good segment for us.
All right, I'm going to step aside now, and I just let you know I look forward to more NASCAR conversation in the future.
I'm down, man. You're arguing with the wrong person.
Yeah, I know.
Got to bring Jamie in for his own segment.
Bahama Gene is not into NASCAR talk. We got to do the winter. We will. Let's get into a little bit of Winter Olympic talk here.
All right, fellas.
See you, Jamie. So, what are just some of the events that like you are absolutely going to be glued to, that you're excited to watch? I know I always have a couple, no matter what's going on, that I watch them. I know I'll let Catrell go because I know he's going to say my first one because we share a love for it. So I'll let him have this one. We'll just keep going around the circle here. So Catrell can go, and then CJ, and then I'll go, and we'll just go around a couple times, and then get in a couple gold medal favorites for the U.S. And then we can finish up.
All right, so for me, the one sport that I know for a fact, Winter Olympics wise, that I'll be tuned in for is curling, both men's and women's.
Yes.
So curling is the one sport where I'm not good at snowboarding, ice skating, none of that stuff. But curling is the one sport that makes me feel like, when I'm watching it at least, that I'm like, hey, these are just regular people out here doing this sport at the highest level. So I absolutely love watching curling. You see these guys who look like they're like 45-year-old dads, like they just got off their 9 to 5 and they went to the arena to do some curling. So I absolutely love watching curling. Some of the favorites this year on the men's side, you got Great Britain and Canada. They're kind of the two odds-on favorites here. U.S. wise, they're kind of right there in the middle. I think their odds were plus 1,100, plus 1,200. So they're like one of those like dark horse teams, but at the same time,
they won gold in Torino, though.
Yeah. So
I mean, listen, I think they can medal. I don't know if they're going to win gold. I think they can medal, though. They can hit the podium.
Yeah, I definitely I think they can medal for sure. But men's and women's, I got the same country. I got Canada taking it all. Great Britain's the favorite on the men's side. I like Canada on the men's side. And then Canada is the favorite on the women's side. I think they hold the crown there over right across the border from us.
John Schuster, though, the skipper of the men's team, got named flag bearer today. So he's one of the flag bearers for the U.S. Olympic team. So my couch potato curling captain is getting his due coming off his gold medal. So good for him. CJ, what you got?
I just want to say that, and Bill, I've told you this before, there's nothing more fun to me than watching Scandinavian women rush ice and scream at each other. There's just nothing wrong with that. For me, so over at the academy, we have an intern who actually skied at UC Boulder, University of Colorado Boulder. So he's been kind of filling our heads with some knowledge. So because of that, I am really looking forward to slope style skiing and big air. And I am shamelessly looking at the names I wrote down that he had told me about. Mac Forehand, Alex Hall, and Nick Goper are just a couple guys that I've been, have taken his advice and checked out some YouTube stuff, and really excited to, just see some of that now that I've had a conversation with somebody that has done that on an extremely competitive level. So I'm really excited to see stuff like that. I would say just my least excited factor this year is the hockey tournament. The fact that we're not going to see the pros in it. That's, some people might like watching the college guys. I want to see the best. But that's all I got there, Skip.
I'm with you on that, CJ. The whole thing last Olympics with TJ Oshie, like, man.
Oh, it was crazy. Watching a shootout and watching him just go over and over and keep scoring was one of the craziest things I've ever watched.
Yep.
I'm not gonna get away from hockey too much though, because the women, we have our top women there. And the US women's team is actually a slight favorite over Canada to win gold. I'm hoping they can go back to back. Canada's kind of caught back up and kind of taking the lead again. I think they've played each other between world championships and other big tournaments 6 times over the last couple of months, and Canada's won, I believe, 4 out of the 6. But U.S. is still slight favorites to repeat as gold. So that part, I will actually be watching the women's hockey. I probably won't watch much of the men's because we're going to get killed. You have, like you said, we have college kids playing against, a bunch of professional players from other leagues across the world. I always get really into, believe it or not, I love watching bobsled and like luge and all that stuff. And we have a couple teams this year that are favored to at least medal. I don't know if they're gonna win gold. But I always think getting in a little ass sled like that and going down pretty much an ice tube, which is what it is, at like 100 miles an hour is mind-boggling to me. And then you get to psychopaths who do it like just laying down, or you have the really crazy people who do it head first, which is called skull. And I think they literally call it that because if you fall off your sled, you're going to break your skull. There's no way around it. Those people, the body control you have to make little minuscule steering and braking, adjustments when you're pretty much going 80 miles an hour with nothing around you is thrilling to me. So that's definitely something I'll be watching. To Gene's point, the skiing and pretty much anything on the slopes. Michaela Schifrin, obviously, she's favored to win gold in 2 events. It's Lindsey Vonn is still the popular name for U.S. skiing, but Michaela is going to pass her most likely this year, assuming she runs well. She'll be the most decorated skier in the history of U.S. skiing, and she doesn't get anywhere near the press or the popularity that Lindsey Vonn does. So I'm wishing her well. Got Nathan Chen for men's figure skating. Dude has been in an absolute tear. He kind of choked a little bit at the last Olympics. I believe he finished 5th. And then since then, out of the 22 competitions he's entered, he's won 20 of them. That young man is on a mission to win gold for men's figure skating. So I hope to see him win. There's so many more. I know the Brian Flores thing was really important. We had to talk about it. I was hoping we could get into this a little bit more, but
real quick, there was a couple people that I did want to talk about. So the other competition that I really like watching is snowboarding, and the U.S. just happens to have a couple of great snowboarders, both sides. So you got Chloe Kim,
flying tomato, baby. Chloe Kim
on the women's side. She's always going to be fun to watch. She was the youngest person to win gold in that event in 2018. And then you got the old man, Shaun White, that's still doing it. So those are the 2 that I'm absolutely going to be glued to watching when snowboarding comes on.
Flying tomato. There's a couple other, I would say. I think the crazy thing is we're favored to win, I think, 8 gold medals in this Olympics. And I think 5 of them are either like snowboard or skiing related. Like that's where everybody's expecting us to do the best.
Yep.
The one other event that I watch a lot, and I've gotten into it more and more as I've got older, I love speed skating. I don't like the long ones though. Like when they skate for like 9 miles, I can't do that because it's like literally the same thing over and over. But the 500 and 1,000, where you're only going around that track like twice, they're getting up to around 35, 40 miles an hour. I love watching that and watching short track. We have Britney Bowe on the women's side. She's favored to win both the 1,000 and the 1,500, but she also qualified for the 500 at the trials. She actually upset what is her name? Why can't I think of it? Erin Jackson. I actually watched that live, unfortunately, as it happened. She hit a rut on the backstretch and actually cost herself a spot on the Olympic team. And she's literally the number one ranked women's skater at the 500 meters, and she didn't make it. She didn't make the team because they only take the top 2 from the trials. So that was horrible to watch. But I do love speed skating. I'll probably post a lot of the stuff on the site, or maybe me and Catrell can do some little like Facebook Live thing where we get into this a little bit more in depth over the weekend once they start. Because I did have a lot prepared, but again, Brian Flores just that segment was too important to not go over and really get into and go through. So, Catrell, do you have a "you got to be kidding me" for this week?
Not really. I mean, obviously the whole Brian Flores thing would be it. But outside of that, like nothing else this week really blew my mind. So
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
CJ, do you have one or no?
I don't have a "you gotta be kidding me," but I have a parting thought, since this may be my one and only time here with the boys.
After this performance, yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow. Thought I did all right.
You did fine.
So-
You did better than Billy.
Oh, jeez.
Wait for my message. to
Bill,
blow up
you
now.
know my stance on some of this. So what I would say is just Baseball Hall of Fame. I just want to say, in my opinion, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Pete Rose, Roger Clemens, players like that are clearly in the top echelon of players of their time because of that era. I feel as though the story of baseball needs to be told, and they should be in the Hall of Fame. I think that baseball in itself over polices and over punishes itself in these situations in comparison to the NFL and the NBA. Because those are the 3 major sports. No disrespect to hockey and soccer, but these are the 3 major sports.
The hockey players keep it light. They just do cocaine.
Yeah, right, exactly. But anyway, the sanctity of baseball records and the way people have held that through the period of professional baseball, I think is a big reason why this happens. But, this name so many guys in the NFL and NBA, you probably don't even hear all of it because it's just not newsworthy at certain points. And they come back and there's no fanfare, there's no protests. It's just they're back. In baseball, you can't do that. There's a whole stadium making signs, guys being accused of doing things that maybe they never did because of how fanatical people are about the sanctity of baseball, when in reality, it's a game. Just wanted to leave it at that. I think it's, I always said that I thought Barry Bonds watched McGwire and Sosa do what they did. And he said, why am I the fool playing by the rules? I just think those guys all could have been Hall of Fame level without the juice. But again, I think you're looking at that era where so much of the league was juicing that it was more the norm than not. That's my opinion. There's been other players that have come out and said that, but that's just my opinion on it.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
You should have been on last week. You could have yelled at me like Catrell did. I got a stupid one. I don't know if anybody saw the Houston Golden State game the other night. I don't know why Kevin Porter Jr. picked this night to just harass and talk trash to Steph Curry all night. There was a funny clip on SportsCenter about it where he was just standing next to him making this crazy face at him and literally just talking in Steph's ear the entire time. Houston, I believe, was winning the game going into the fourth quarter. And Porter Jr. absolutely pissed off Steph Curry, who then turned around and dropped 21 in the fourth quarter. And Golden State won by I think 14 or 15 points. So Kevin Porter, you got to kind of know where your role is in the NBA hierarchy still. Great up-and-coming player, but you're not ready to be that Steph Curry noise yet. So this week for me, it's Kevin Porter Jr.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Anybody got any closing thoughts? Wrap this puppy up, this train wreck of a podcast.
I don't. I got nothing this week, man.
Gene?
CJ, it's
sorry.
been fun.
Thanks, man. Yeah, Bill's called me Gene
Yeah,
three
Bill's
times,
never.
4 times.
Yeah,
I
honored.
did. I just called you Gene.
He's never gonna get your name right.
That's awful. I apologize.
Appreciate you guys having me. Really excited to get back on the field in a couple weeks here. We've been shut down for 2 years at the college, so really excited to get the boys out there. And
for anybody who doesn't know,
reviews.
CJ is the head coach at Bucks County Community College. He's also the co-owner of Rake. For all you guys know, listen, I'm a little biased because I know both guys that own it very well. I know how much they care, and I know how much they do for me and my softball team, as well as just being good friends to me. I can tell you this: if you have young kids, if you have nephews or nieces or whatever, there is no better place to send your children to work on baseball and be instructed by people that they have on staff there. It's a wonderful facility, and they care. They're honest. They don't. It's not a place. It's not a cookie cutter place. I'm not going to mention any competition, but they're not going to go. You're not going to go in there and not going to blow sunshine up your ass. They're going to work with your kid. They're going to make them love the game, and they're going to make them better. They're not going to promise you, the stars and every other thing like a lot of other places do. So again, Rig Baseball Academy, literally anything you need baseball or softball related, check them out. Go down there, talk to them. They're both great guys. They know the game inside and out. Drew played minor league baseball. CJ, like myself, has played baseball his entire life. He's now the head coach of a college team. It's the knowledge, and the pedigree of the people that work there and instruct the kids is second to none. Couple of little goofy things. Want to make sure we keep reminding people if next weekend is the biggest betting day of the year. So make sure you are going on our partner and Gino and Bet Openly. Check out the site. I'm wearing it tonight. The other guys had it on last week. The new merch is around. If you want to order anything, every time we get 10 orders, we're going to put an order in. And I think we're pretty close to that now. So hopefully by the end of the week, we'll put another order in. So if you want to get your stuff in, contact me, contact Gene, contact Catrell, anybody, shoot us a message. We can get your stuff ordered, and turnaround time is pretty quick. The only other thing I wanted to mention, I told my sister I would give her team a shout out. They're getting ready to start up the year. The Rake Baseball Under 14 softball team. My sister coaches along with Jen Savitsky and Jackie Heim. So I hope you guys have a great year. I know you guys have put in a lot of hard work with the girls. So I hope you guys have a better year this year than last year. Keep working, keep grinding, keep getting better. That's all you can ask from the girls. So I think that's it. Gino, we will see you next week. Come home, put your Mai Tai down, stop humping your coconuts, and have a safe flight back, bud. And I think for this week, show 69, show Billy Bob, I think we're done. Have a great week, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Are we still in there? Can everybody still